coaching business from home using only free apps and no ads. If you're a new coach trying to get your first couple of clients, or you already have a couple of clients but no business, then you really want to listen to what Jon has to share today. Online coaching can be super rewarding if you enjoy helping people. And the ability to do it online makes it a business that you can basically start with no money. But starting every business is always an adventure because there are so many potentials to make mistakes if you don't have a roadmap. So that's why I'm super excited that Jon is here on my channel today. He will show us and you how to start your coaching business with free apps in 24 hours. So Jon, I'm super curious, how did you actually come up with some of the solutions that you are going to share with us today?
I would say really by a lot of trial and error over the years, if I'm being totally truthful. And when I mentor someone, one of the core concepts that I teach is start, learn, evolve. And so I would try something. I found it really wasn't that efficient or didn't work the way I wanted to. So I guess we could say it kind of broke. And then I'd be forced to figure out a new way of doing this. And I don't view this as a negative thing because I don't think we should shy away from trial and error. I mean,
Mhm.
I've been coaching online since 2015, and I still make mistakes along the way because the world of online coaching is frequently evolving.
Yeah. And so that's so awesome that you're going to share your mistakes and your experiences, so we don't have to do as much trial and
Yeah.
error, even though it happens all the time. Tell me a little bit about some of the mistakes that you have made.
I think the biggest thing would be spending too much money too soon on things that weren't suited for the scale that my business was at in the beginning. And so really like spending maybe too much money on apps or software that were far more sophisticated than I needed currently. Like I remember spending like $600 on an email software, $100 a month for some client management software I never ended up using, and really this whole list of other things that I thought that was what I needed in order for clients to take me seriously and to
Mhm.
be a serious business. And so, because of that, I was spending money unnecessarily when I didn't have the equivalent of that money coming in. And so I realized like I have to lean this out and only spend money that I have coming in if I want to have a profitable business. And then I would say probably the other side of the coin would be spending money on mentorship programs that maybe
Mhm.
they promised the world, but they couldn't deliver. And I really didn't have the money to invest. And so I was really like maxing out my credit card. And I don't think that was a very wise decision on my part.
Yeah, it reminds me so often. So many of my YouTube videos, I edit them with iMovie and all. I think all the time, or if I just get a fancier editing software, then my videos would blow up. When in reality, I probably still use a third, if that, of all the abilities of iMovie. And the
Right.
same
Yeah.
goes with, oh, I need Photoshop and I need this and this. So we start to spend money without actually understanding how some of some of the software that we have already works.
Yeah.
So from a high level perspective, what are some of the top tips that you would give to start your coaching business when you only want to focus on free apps?
I think in a nutshell, you want to think about what functions you need in your ultra lean startup in order to coach the way that you want to coach. So don't go to, let's say, large established businesses to try to copy or replicate what they're doing. I say like don't give a 5-year-old a Tour de France racing bike.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
really, when you're trying to decide, is this a tool I should use in my business? It should be starting out. It should be free or very inexpensive. Maybe a couple of bucks a month, available to you right now. Really, like pretty easy to use. So there's not a learning curve, or something that you're already familiar with.
Yeah, that's such a great point, because we fall into this comparison trap all the time, and then we
Yeah,
look at a company like Precision Nutrition and we try to
yeah,
have
yeah,
animated infographics that are with a professional voiceover, and
yeah,
we think we need this kind of of production value before we can start for the
yeah.
first time.
Yeah, we get, and it's funny that you mentioned PN because, of course, I'm PN1, PN2, and so obviously, and you have quite a background with PN as well. So they've influenced a lot of what I do. But really, when I started out, and I actually had this thought, like I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I compete with a company like PN that's like this behemoth in the industry? And then
Yeah.
I took a step back and I go, hang on a sec, I can't. and that's a good thing. What can
Mhm.
I do that they can't do? And so I started looking for the gaps because, sometimes you get looking at companies this big and you go, oh my gosh, they're huge. But like in reality, the population of the US, for example, is, I don't know, 330 million people.
Mhm.
And they
Mhm.
might have served 200,000 people, which is just a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of the population. There's a lot of people out there that need help. And on top of that, PN isn't really necessarily for everybody because of the sort of the way that they coach. So I just
Yeah.
started looking for what are the gaps? How can I serve people? Because I'm like a little speedboat that can zip around. They're like an aircraft carrier. When they make an adjustment, they have to do like take so many factors into account. And so
Mhm.
actually I was much more lean and agile. And so I just figured, here's the things that I can do that they don't do. And that's how I compete, is by not even trying to be like them.
Yeah, it's this red ocean, blue ocean idea. Like, where is no competition at all? How
Yeah.
can I go to this 1% area where I bring in my unique factors and unique experiences where actually nobody can compete with me? And sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I think sometimes also thinking back to some mistakes that I would have made, there's like a
Mhm.
temptation to really make a push for scalability in the beginning. But I'm
Mhm.
like, really, you need to battle test what you do before you start trying to scale something you don't even know if it's what you want to do,
Mhm.
you know? And so it's like, I think we got maybe our expectations. I say we, meaning coaches starting out, because I've been through a couple of mentorship programs. I've been behind the scenes as a coach inside mentorship programs. I understand how they work. And one of the flaws that I saw in there is really bringing coaches in who were not in the place to take advantage of what was being offered. So this is not knocking the mentorship programs, but saying it was not the right fit. And so this is actually how I ended up doing what I'm doing, is I was like, somebody needs to teach these people how to build a basic business. And then, hey,
Mhm.
I get you set up and hey, now maybe I usher you into one of these programs where now you're actually positioned to take advantage of it. But, really just kind of getting ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah, in the beginning, it's like we get this message of, oh, make 6 figure, 7 figure, get so many new leads every day, when we actually, the first step is to actually be a coach for some time
Hmm.
before you
Hmm.
try to unbecome a coach again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I love this idea. And you mentioned that you are working with coaches. Can you give us some of the results that you have seen when people start with this ultra lean coaching practice?
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the six-figure number, not because I'm going to tell you I can get you six figures in 4 weeks. Quite the opposite. I really want to temper people's expectations because I've been coaching online for 7 years now. I've seen the ups and downs. I know that I have a sustainable practice because I've had good months and thought, yeah, I'm really on the right track. I thought every month was going to go like this, and it turns out
Mm,
it's not quite like that.
mhm,
And you got to be prepared for some ups and downs. And so I think really realistically though, it's not a stretch to say you could pick up 1,000 to 1,500 bucks in your first 4 weeks if you really apply yourself. And it's going to require, and I say apply yourself because it's legitimately going to require some groundwork in the beginning because I started out saying like I'm a world class coach and nobody knows who I am. And
mhm,
so I can't just expect people to magically find me. So I had to put in the legwork in the beginning. But if you put in the legwork, and keeping in mind that putting in the legwork doesn't mean you're always going to work at that pace. But in the beginning, you're the one that has to get the momentum going. But
yeah.
it's not, hey, look, if I had made $1,000 or 1,500 in my first month of coaching, I would have been pretty happy actually. Like, so we can kind of short circuit that a little bit here.
Yeah. And on the opposite side, have you seen coaches who went into some of these mentorship programs or who try to unbecome and automate their coaching so much? And what actually happens to them if they don't follow your approach?
Well, I think actually what ends up happening, one, you create something overly complex that is a bigger pain in the what to
Mm,
run. And essentially you get broken, discouraged, and quit coaching and get burnt out because you think maybe it's not for you. The quote, perfection is the enemy of progress.
mhm,
When we're looking for trying to create like the perfect business structure or something, it's really a mask, I think, for insecurity or feeling a sense of like imposter syndrome. And, you know,
Mhm.
having
Mhm.
this beautiful, perfect, seemingly, you know, automated, systemized coaching business machine, it's not going to cure imposter syndrome or lack of confidence. And in the end, could actually have the opposite effect where it will backfire and worsen because you realize I thought this is what I needed to feel confident as a coach, and it turns out it's not. And
Mhm.
so, really taking a step back again and saying, you know, simplify things, maybe let go of the ego and realize that people want to see you as a real human being first,
Mhm.
rather than just be plugged into a system.
Yeah. I remember when I started out, I took part in one of those free webinars, and this coach essentially laid out a full um, Facebook ads email funnel with all the
Sure. Yeah.
pixel with, oh, and we can retarget here and then email and I had this huge paper in the end where I thought, oh, this is so amazing, so cool. And then just trying to comprehend where to start was challenge enough.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
thought, oh no, I'm just going into my group fitness practice and say, hey, I'm telling people what to eat so they get shredded abs. Do you want to know what I'm telling them? And then people said,
Ma-
that doesn't sound too bad, actually.
right, right. Just massively simplifying it. And here's something else I'll share with people. Like, I don't say you have to do exactly what I do or exactly what I teach. My approach is a little bit more like I'm going to put forward a principle. I'm going to say here's a business principle, for example, and I want you to try to apply this. And I want you to get feedback, figure out, does this work for me, and how do we make adjustments? Because I think the other thing, sometimes maybe we want, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. I see this in nutrition coaching as well. Obviously, there's quite a bit of crossover between like early mentorship and nutrition coaching. It's like, that's not really empowering you. I'm going to give you some guidelines so you get started, but I want you to shape this business to suit you and how you want to coach, not to be another clone of me. And maybe sometimes that's a mistake that we see in like mentorship programs as well, where they're maybe in the pursuit of scalability and numbers and volume. So it's like, we're just going to plug you into the system. And again, I'm not necessarily knocking what they do. There's some very, very good mentors out there. And I know a number of them, and I'm friends with some of them. But on the same token, it's not for everybody. Like, if I'm going to work with you, it's going to be one-to-one, and I'm going to help you customize. Like, instead of just doing exactly what I did, you can't replicate my success by following exactly what I did because I'm a different coach than you. But we can take these principles and adapt them to suit how you want to do it. And I think that's where being an experienced coach comes in as well.
Oh, yeah. So let's imagine 12 years back, probably a little fewer wrinkles, less gray hair, passionate about
Yeah.
health and fitness. How would you help me start off as a coach?
You know, I actually think it's a little bit like dating. Like, in the beginning, you're gonna put yourself out there. You're gonna share what you're doing. You probably have some kind of certification along with some life experience, and that gives you a bit of an idea of who you might like to work with. So start there. But like, don't expect it to be perfect. Don't expect for you to find like your perfect clients off the hop. Because I mean, I know some mentors will talk about terms like, you know, finding your soulmate clients, which is a nice thought. But in the beginning, you don't really know what that's going to look like. And so it goes back to prepare yourself for a little bit of trial and error. You know, think about it a little bit like dating. And I think once we shape our expectations about what this looks like, that maybe it isn't just going to be a quick ride up the rainbow bridge to the clouds in 10K months, and you go,
Mhm.
okay, there's going to be a little bit of struggle along the way, but it's what's going to help me to build like a resilient, sustainable business. Okay, I'm willing to go through that, put in the reps.
Ooh, I love this idea of I can experiment a little bit with this type of client and experiment a little bit with this type of
Mm,
client. And in reality, when we start out, it's not this type of client, but there's a person who actually would give me money for it, and there's another person, and
yeah,
I actually don't have to worry. Oh, are they in the right age bracket,
right.
or am I not coaching in my niche anymore?
Yeah. Because I think sometimes there's this fear that like, okay, like we'll create our ideal client avatar, and that's not a bad exercise to do. There's value in doing that. And I even show people, of course, how to do it, or one way of doing this. But we don't want to start out thinking like every client must fit this mold. It's like you need some money coming into your business from a practical sense. So,
Yeah.
and even the idea of like firing clients, I think that's that I feel a little bit uneasy about that, because I think, well, hey,
Mhm.
if you have a difficult client, this is a great learning experience. Maybe have that conversation with them. Don't just go like, oh, you're too much work because you're not my ideal client. Be like,
Mhm.
how can I grow and expand as a coach by being willing to put myself through the process of learning how to work with a client like this? Because clients aren't robots, they're human beings.
Mhm. 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 Okay. Now I have my dating mindset.
Yeah.
I'm ready. What are the next steps? So what is your framework for the older leading coaching business?
Well, I think here's the crux of the lesson. You need just a couple of key things. A way to communicate your offer and share value with your
Mhm.
audience. So maybe you would choose one or two platforms in social media, but not all of them. So pick
Mhm.
which mediums you like. For me, I love podcasting, actually, which is one that doesn't get talked about as much, but we'll keep that for a separate conversation. So a way to communicate your offer, a way to book sales calls, some kind of booking software, a way to kind of keep track of your leads, who you're communicating with and where they're at in terms of whether or not they want to work with you, a way to run your sales and coaching calls, a way to get paid, and then a way to actually coach people. So what method, are you going to use like Zoom and Messenger and email or, but really, if you think about it from that, it's like, I just need to put these simple pieces in place and then I have a functioning business, and that can be done in a few hours in a day.
Okay. I wanna dig deeper. So
Okay.
my people like Instagram,
Yeah.
and I like Instagram as well, but my main thing is video. Okay. My people like Instagram. What is the next step? So how can I start getting clients and how can I start serving them when I have decided, okay, I want to focus on Instagram?
I think, and this isn't just my advice, but it's share free help. So give people valuable content that if they were to take and implement themselves, they would actually see results. And I think sometimes, especially starting out, because we're new and we maybe have a little bit of a scarcity mindset, to use a term that again is a little bit cliche, but every client seems like, gaining or losing a client seems like life or death just about for your coaching business.
Mhm,
And so
mhm.
maybe we're afraid to share this because it's like, well, if I share this information with them, they're not going to want to hire me. But I think we're missing really what coaching actually is, because you live in the age of Google. I'm pretty sure that anything that I can teach you, you could probably find on Google. So that's not
Mhm.
where the true value of coaching or mentorship comes in. So be generous with what you share in terms of helping people. There's a marketer called Frank Kern, a legendary sort of info marketer or whatever, but he calls it results in advance. Give people results in advance, and they're more likely to trust you and want to work with you because you didn't withhold something, you genuinely helped them. Because even if they take your advice and they start getting some results, they're going to get stuck and need to be able to tweak and adjust and get some feedback. And that's where the coaching really becomes valuable.
Yeah, it's the idea of we think if we give this tiny piece of Instagram post, they will be able to go from where they are all the way to the end. When in
Yeah, yeah,
reality, usually what you can actually convey in an Instagram post might be one step, half of a step. And
yeah,
sometimes it's like you can talk about the what and why, and then the Instagram post is already too long when you want to talk about the how to actually do it, because there's
right.
that's complicated enough. One of the mindsets that many coaches struggle with is I'm completely new, so
Mhm.
how should I get clients without testimonials?
Yeah, that's a tricky one, but I would say everybody has a story in one way or another. So tell your story. What have you overcome in life? Even if you're young, you likely face some kind of obstacle, because what you're doing is you're demonstrating the tools that I might work with you with, I've used and put into practice. And yes, obviously my life might not be identical to yours, but think about like what has inspired you to do what you do now? What struggles have you faced? What struggles are you currently facing? Because I think also there's a fear of I have to look perfect in order for people to want to hire me. And it's like, no, be human. When I started telling my story about my struggles with obesity and weight, I thought everybody was going to reject me because all they're
Mhm.
going to, the truth is out. I'm not a fitness model. I don't look like an Instagram, superstar in booty pants or something. And instead, my business took off because people were like, oh my gosh, this guy is relatable. He gets me. He's going to understand because it's his lived struggle.
Mhm.
And so I think being willing to be vulnerable and share your story in an authentic fashion. But I mean, obviously, we're not just out there trying to get sympathy likes, because that's not the kind of client you're looking for. But share your
Mhm.
story in a way, let me show you how I navigate this. Let me show you how I've overcome this little struggle in my life, and so on. And, you know, obviously, it's not always going to work out the way you expect, but be willing to put yourself out there, and people
Mhm.
read themselves into stories. And so I think that's probably a great way to get started.
Yeah, and I think we I certainly had this feeling like, okay, if I want to be a coach, then I have to promise like lose 100 pounds in 100 days without ever feeling hungry.
Right. Yeah.
When
Yeah.
in reality, I was still struggling with, okay, what is actually the best way for me to eat to have the best performance when I'm in group fitness classes? So what
Yeah.
I learned over time is like if you have taken 3 steps, and it could be like I am overweight, but I've managed to eat most of my meals are healthy now, then you can make this little promise. If you work with me and you're overweight, you can start eating a little bit healthier. And as you progress, then you can make bigger promises.
Yeah, you're really touching on something really like very, very important here. I think again, as new coaches, we feel like we have to make there's this pressure to make sensational promises about the
Mhm.
results you can deliver in order for people to hire you. And that's a mistake, because in truth, you probably can't deliver those sensational results. That's not a knock. It's just to say, look, in real life, probably 50% or more of your clients aren't going to see results. I
Mhm.
mean, I mean, probably look at bigger companies and the number, less than 20% see results. That's not a knock on your ability as a coach, but it's a recognition of the reality. And so if you set people's expectations immensely high, you hold yourself to this nearly impossible standard and create all kinds of stress and pressure on you as a coach that you don't need to. And so if you
Mhm.
offer people because here's the thing, we've been marketed to in this fitness and weight loss space, for example, for a very long time. People are more savvy. They've seen the flash in the pan stuff. They've tried the quick fixes. They know. Now we still want to buy into it because there's a bit of a lottery mentality there. Maybe this is the one that's going to work. But in our
Mhm.
heart of hearts, we know that this is actually a difficult process because we've tried it. And very likely, if a client is hiring you, you're probably not the first coach they've hired. And so tell people, shape their expectations and tell them the reality of what this process might look like.
Ooh, wow. We could go so deep into so many directions, but I want to go a little bit deeper into the area of okay, let's get clients. And you're talking about sharing free tips, helping in advance. Let's assume I've never actually really created an Instagram post. Of course, I've made a story of, hey, I'm at the sea with my dogs or something like
Right,
this.
right. Sure. Yeah.
How can I now start creating some coaching business content?
Um, Again, I think don't put too much pressure on yourself. Like I tried to go the Instagram route back in about, I don't know, 2018 or something, the infographic route, sorry. And that was just way, way, way too much pressure. And again, it sounds cliche because it's like it can mean so many different things, but it's like be authentic, and choose an approach that works for you. So, for example, I'm quite good with the written word, but I'm not great with visual content. So, creating aesthetically appealing. So, Instagram wasn't really a place for me, or like wasn't the best fit for me. Whereas Facebook at the time when I was starting out was really good because my written content was generating a lot of interest.
Yeah.
And so play to your strengths. Don't feel like you have to be on every platform, but choose what is the medium where I feel most natural communicating, and make that like your kind of your home. And I would say, just knock my water bottle over. I get excited and wave my arms around when I talk about this. I love this stuff. But really, like, you want to practice what you preach, and so that you understand the lived struggle that your potential clients might experience. So what was working really, really well for me in terms of content was, again, people would read themselves into my stories. Like, I see myself in the story that you are telling, even though it's not
Mhm.
identical. I have clients that are 60 something year old females. I'm a 40-year-old male. What do I know about being a 60 something year old female? Not a lot, but I know what it's like to try and lose weight multiple times and struggle
Mhm.
and hate myself and so on. And so choose the way choose a way to communicate that works best for you. And then tell, again, it almost goes back to like telling your story, because, and I keep saying story because stories are sticky and memorable. They
Yeah.
stay with us, whereas like facts don't really stick. And so if you're willing to share elements of yourself and your story, I think make that the heart of your content instead of necessarily saying I have to have the most perfect looking influencer Instagram, stream or whatever it is.
Ooh, yeah, and it's also the idea. We're moving towards the summer. Like, what should I do with the next 3 months? Should I focus on getting shredded abs so I can take a cool picture, or do I learn how to communicate better through practice? We have talked about free apps a couple of times, but we haven't heard any. So can you give us a couple of starter kit free apps that you recommend for people to use when they start?
Absolutely. I would say like Zoom is ubiquitous. Like it or love it, it's everywhere. Google Meet or Google Hangouts, whatever they call it these days, might be another one. But I think Zoom is more versatile. So that's probably Calendly is the one that I use. There's a lot of booking softwares out there, and a lot of them have a free version. And don't worry about if they slap their brand on it. Who cares? Your clients don't care. Everyone knows you're going to use some kind of software to make this happen. When it comes to tracking leads, create a Google spreadsheet. It's free, right? When it comes to getting paid, PayPal, Wave, Stripe. So just pick a payment software. Wave is kind of an interesting one. Stripe I found to be a little bit complex. PayPal is pretty good. And there's another one called Wise that's relatively new that I'm kind of playing with. And then think about, how am I going to coach people? Maybe it's Zoom, Messenger, and email. And then I think like something like Google Calendar, iCalendar, just a way to stay organized.
Yeah, I love this. It goes back to the principles of I need to collect money, I need to communicate, and I need to share some kind of information.
Yeah, you could almost, I'm sure there's an acronym in there like waiting to be birthed. Yeah, communicate, collaborate, and something else. And if anybody knows, like drop something in the comments. But
Oh yes, I will. We will give credit to you forever.
Yes.
One of the big struggles that new coaches have is actually having the sales conversation.
Yeah.
Even sometimes you have this random encounter, and suddenly you're talking about your business, and then there's this, oh, I don't want to be salesy, but I don't know what to ask. So do you have some favorite questions that you ask in your sales calls?
Yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we could dive just deep into the psychology of sales calls. But really, in the beginning, it's like, let's keep this super simple. Otherwise, what happens is you're too busy trying to remember what to ask or say, because you'll get like some sales call flows that are like a flow chart with 28 bubbles on it. And if you're trying to follow that, you're not engaged with the person you're talking with, and they're going to know it. And so the simpler you can make this, the more likely you can be present and human and authentic in the call and really listen to them and make them feel heard and connected. And so I think that's the foundation of a good sales call. So treat this like it's a respectful conversation. You're not out to trick them. You're not out to manipulate them. You're really looking to understand them to see if they would genuinely be a good fit for you or not. And like literally last night, I turned down a client because the circumstances weren't right. So I would say any good sales call is probably going to have like 3 key questions. One, what's not working for you right now? What are you unhappy with that has you considering getting help? So where are you at right now that you don't want to be? Then we do some future pacing. So, hey, 3, 6, 9 months from now, how do you want your life to be different? And you could have some fun with it and be like, hey, let's just say we work together and we get these incredible results. And you're so excited that you'd buy me a Ferrari if you had the money because you're so happy about those results. What are those results you're looking for? You don't have to always treat it so like serious and formal here. And then the third thing is really, we know where you're at. We know where you'd like to go. And even maybe why this matters to you. Why do you need help? Why haven't you succeeded doing this yourself? And that is like the golden question in a sense, because here's where they're going to say out loud why they need your help. And they may never have said it out loud before. And that's when they go, oh, I need to hire you.
Ooh. I knew when we had this initial conversation that you would drop so many super practical ideas and give us really an idea of how we can start our coaching business very easily. That doesn't take months or weeks, and with basically free apps. One thing that we talked about is getting free information is nice, but mentorship is on a completely different level. So tell us, how are you helping coaches to actually get started?
Well, I have a whole sort of series of courses I've written and created. And I look at it like this: there's kind of a series of steps I would walk somebody through. And depending on where they're at in their business, kind of determines where we would start. And so if they got nothing, we're probably going to start with what we've been talking about today: ultra lean startup. Let's get that framework going. So right away, you can start getting money into your business. Then we're going to look at, okay, how do we create content that sells? What does that look like for you? And I've been nicknamed the content whisperer by some of my mentorship clients. Because of my ability to listen to people and really draw out their own stories that they might not see in themselves. And there's such power in those conversations. And once that's up and running, we kind of have what I call the 5C organic funnel. And that's really, how do you go from now creating content to getting paying clients? What does that process look like if we break it down? And once we have that up and running, you now have, like, you've got your business structure, you're communicating content that reaches people, and now you have a way to turn that content into sales calls. Now you have a functioning business. Now it's probably not necessarily scalable, but you have a functioning business that's bringing revenue in, and you're probably making a little bit of a profit. So maybe we want to go to the next level. And that's where I go into, okay, now we're going to build a real foundation, and then we're going to build a digital framework, a digital infrastructure that's scalable. Then we're going to put, like, the interior designer finishing touches, and that's crafting your client experience. So we go into more detail. So by the end of it, and we don't always have to go all of these stages. Some people, hey, maybe it's just, I want to get to having a lean and efficient startup. Cool. Other people, it's like, I want to build a scalable business infrastructure. Well, we can teach you that as well. And I say we, but it's me. You're going to work with me one-on-one, because I do this knowing it's not scalable, but it's the work I want to do. I want to work with you one-to-one.
Okay, I absolutely love this. For everyone who is watching this, all the links are going to be in the description and in the comments. Jon, thank you so much for sorry. Thank you so much for being here. For everyone who's still watching, thank you so much for taking the time. And everyone, have a great day.
Take care.